Hello, welcome to another chess video tutorial, and today I'm going to show you how to continue on with your attacks by attacking on open files or open diagonals. As we understand through our tactics so far are that rooks and bishops, they thrive well. They do very well whenever they are attacking on open files or open diagonals on the chessboard. Things work very well when you're able to double up two rooks on an open file, be able to attack straight down the line, or even doubling up a queen and a bishop on an open diagonal to be able to go into the enemy territory. Our main goal is to be able to bring our attacks into the enemy's territory on their side of the chessboard, and pretty much you want to take advantage of that protection of the piece that's backing them right behind them. For the rest of this video, we're going to continue on with examples of how to attack on an open file. But first, we need to understand what an open file is. Whenever there are pawns, both your opponents and your very own pawns, this is what we call a closed file. The rooks are not able to attack straight down the line until these pawns are moved out of the way. Whenever only one of the opponent's pawns is on a single file, we then call this a half open file, where it only takes one more move to get rid of that one single pawn right here, and then the rooks would then be able to attack all the way across the board as they choose. And lastly, we have an open file, when there are no pawns active at all on a file that's located where the rook is. This is an opportunity for the rook to take advantage of this highway to go straight into the enemy territory and create certain types of attacks. What we have to understand is that open files are pretty much the rook's highway into the opponent's position. So in particular, the 7th rank is where the rook's strongest position, and sometimes referred to as the refreshment rank. So this is an opportunity where you put the rook on the 7th rank, on the second to last rank on the chessboard. As you can see right here, if you put that rook anywhere on there with the proper protection and to make sure that that rook is not going to be taken away, is going to be very advantageous because it's eyeing down the enemy king. Many individuals go as far as saying that the rook on the 7th rank is possibly worth a pawn sacrifice, and we're going to take a look at a couple examples now. In this example, I'm going to show you how rooks are very powerful on the 7th rank. As we can see here, this rook has a very open file, being able to go into enemy territory as he pleases. So what this rook can do right now is being able to move over here to d7, being able to fork the pawns on both the h and the b file. There's no way for black to be able to defend both of these pieces at the same time. Therefore, one of these pieces is going to be lost. What's also great about this position is that this king is also stuck on the last rank. As long as no other pieces come here and be able to release the king out of its prison hold right here, white's king would be able to come in and be able to come support the pawn marches as we move forward in these couple examples right here. So it doesn't matter which move king makes right here. If the king decides to come here to protect the h pawn, this rook will continue to be able to take a pawn right here and uphold a very strong position, locking this king on this last rank. And that's why the rook on the refreshment rank is very powerful and is going to be very advantageous, as you can see in future examples. If we already think one rook on the 7th rank is already powerful enough, imagine if there are two rooks. In this example, I'll show you rook over here to d7 is going to be able to take control of the second to last rank. The king cannot get out, and there's no other pieces to be able to break this king out of this stronghold right here. And the king right here is going to protect this pawn because, of course, this rook is attacking the h pawn. And then another great move is being able to play rook on e to e7 and being able to double up the rooks right here in this particular situation. It doesn't matter what black decides to play, even though if he plays h5 to defend its pawn, this rook over here is guarded by their partner rook right here. Two rooks guarding one another, checking the king, and once the king gets out of check, you'll be able to take away these pawns. Rooks in a very strong position, again taking advantage of an open file. Being able to move into your opponent's territory is going to be very advantageous for you in your games. In this example right here, what white decides to play in order to take advantage of these open files right here down the center, is by playing rook to e7, and black has a couple of choices that he can make right here. In this case, if black decides to defend the rank and try to knock this rook off of the 7th rank, what white would be able to do is be able to capture that rook, and king captures back on f7, and now this rook right here would be able to come here to bring the king back, and then to bring the king back, and now the rook has a very good stronghold. An active rook versus a passive rook right here, playing defender on b7, and this rook has control right now, which allows the king over here be able to march up and be able to play an active role for the pawn march and march into the opponent's king territory up here. Now, instead of playing rook goes to f7 in order to defend, what black could do is black could play rook captures f5, being able to try to take a free pawn right now. But in this position, it's not going to be very helpful for black, because white can just respond back with rook on d to d7, and now you have two rooks being able to guard one another and create a nice attacking line over here. It doesn't matter whichever side the rooks want to take, it'll be able to take pawns on the queen side or on the king side over here. These pawns are now in danger. So pretty much what we have right now is that these two rooks are backing each other up, and it opens up opportunity for these rooks to be able to take one pawn off at a time. In this example right here, we have a very open D file right here. We know that rooks on open files are going to be very, very powerful. As you can see in this example, we have black having two rooks as well as white having two rooks, and the material is generally even. It's pretty much which rook can get to the open file with the proper support will be able to control the flow of the game. In this example right here, we have white being able to move their rook over to d2. As we can see here, white is going to try to control the open file down the line right here, but black will be able to respond with putting their rook on the d file at d8. We have two rooks guarding each other, and what we have right now is this king guarding this rook, and then two rooks fighting down the middle. But what's unique in this situation is that white can create what we call a battery. A battery being able to double up the rooks and being able to put both rooks onto the same file at the same time. So what we can see right now is that if black decides to take white's rook over here on d2, white would then be able to respond back and still have control of the d file right here. Eventually white would be able to move up to d7 and be able to control the 7th rank, as we mentioned in the previous examples. Which this example of the battery brings us back to being able to support your pieces, so that way they can maintain a better position than your opponent in the long term. In this example, we have black being able to play f6, and then white is going to respond this way. White's going to respond with queen to h8, being able to check the king and being able to be protected by the rook all the way down here. We have two very strong major pieces on an open file. It was a half open file because the black pawn was here, and black is going to return over here. Next, white's going to bring in their other rook over here, being able to attack the king, but also in addition to also attack the queen as well. Black's only move is to be able to move the king to e8, now hiding over here in the defenses. The first thing that we'll do is being able to move right here, capture this queen, and what black would do in response, be able to return the favor with the other queen, and white is going to play really great skewer attack right now, checking the king, and the king having to move up will then be able to capture this rook. White giving up a lot of different materials so that way they can achieve this goal. As we can see here, the two major pieces on an open file or even an open half file right now, bringing their major pieces in here and being able to bring their attacks to their opponent. In this example, we have white being able to play queen to h5 in order to attack the h7 pawn for checkmate. What black can do in response to this to defend this h7 pawn right here is being able to move the bishop over here to e4, then defending this barrier right here, this battery that's being created by white up here, being able to attack on here. Rather than white playing to h5 in order to potentially create this checkmate, what white can also do is being able to possibly bring their queen over here to d3 to attack this to prevent this bishop from coming over here to defend it. What black can do as well is to defend by moving the pawn up here to block off the queen's capture. So then white would be able then to capture right here en passant, as well as being able to capture this back. But now you have black's queen being able to defend this square, so preventing this potential checkmate that we have up here. From our lessons in the past, can you find the best move for white? If you said sacrifice the rook on h7, you have a really great eye, because how black is going to have to respond to this is being able to attack or take this rook away, and then white would then be able to play the h5 move, now checking this king. This king would then have to go back, and then white would then continue on with a battery or continue on with creating the support, so that way they can bring the queen over here. It doesn't matter what black decides to play in this next move, it is going to be checkmate in a few moves. Even if black decides to play right here, you then can support by bringing this pawn up to g6, now covering away the running away square, and it doesn't matter what other move black decides to make, because this is all going to be a checkmate next move. Whether if the queen comes over here to h7 or h8, is still being supported by a rook, creating this nice little battery that was on half open file, but now it's completely wide open because they were able to sacrifice the rook but continue on with the follow through. I hope that you were able to get a lot of value from this extensive video talking about an open file. Remember, rooks and queens thrive well when they are best supported with supporting each other on open files. So if we're able to combine these concepts with pins, skewers, and even different opportunities to create an attack into the enemy's territory, you're going to be able to break your way through. If there is an open file, there is a potential for this to become the next highway for these rooks to come down and being able to attack your opponent's king. I hope that you're able to enjoy this video. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thank you very much for stopping by, and good luck on your chess.